Hi guys, welcome back to this session 77 of Java Full Stack Made Easy series. So in this session we will be talking about the Java based configuration and annotation based configuration. So the very first thing that we will talk about with respect to Java based and annotation based configuration is that whether they are same or different. So the first thing is that Java based configuration and annotation based configuration are not the same, but they work together and often are confused. So let's see what annotation based configurations are all about and what is Java based configuration, because we will be using both together all the time, most of the time. So people get confused what exactly is Java based configuration and what exactly is annotation based configuration. So let's talk about the annotation based configuration. Fine, and also the Java based configuration. So I'll just give you some example about the annotation based configuration and the Java based configuration. After that we will implement this into our code and then understand both the things together. So in terms of annotation based configuration, you put annotations on classes to tell Spring what to manage, right? So annotation based configuration is all about what? Put annotations on classes to tell Spring what to manage. That's annotation based configuration, and the example for that is component. So we will be using these annotations on top of the classes in my later demos to understand how they work. Service, and it can be a repo, or it can be our controller, it can be a controller advice. So there are a lot of things that can be used. So these are some of the commonly used annotations when we talk about annotation based configuration. So annotation based configuration is all about putting up the annotation on top of the classes to tell Spring what to manage. And then what we have is we have the Java based configuration. Fine. So let's talk about the Java based configuration as well. Now, the Java based configuration is all about what? You use a Java class instead of the XML to define the beans manually. So in the previous session, we talked about the XML based configuration. So here we will be talking about the Java based configuration to eliminate the need of that XML. So we use Java class instead of XML to define beans manually. So more control about the bean will be there when we talk about the Java based configuration. Fine. So now the annotations, the main annotations that we will talk about in the Java based configuration would be something like the configuration itself. So this is one very important annotation that comes under the Java based configuration. And also we have the bean annotation, which is a part of this, where we define the beans and we have full control over the bean. And there will be no component scanning required here, and there will be full control over the object creation. And here we will check it at the compile time itself, whereas in terms of annotation based configuration it is done during the runtime. So that is the difference between the Java based configuration and the annotation based configuration. We obviously use these things together, so people get generally confused between what exactly is annotation based configuration and what exactly is Java based configuration. And some of them, they consider that annotation based configuration and Java based configuration both are same. So but the answer for that is Java based and annotation based configurations are not the same, they are different. Annotation based configuration, they where you put annotation on top of the classes to tell Spring what to manage. Examples of annotation based configurations can be component, service, repository, and the controller. And in terms of Java based configuration, you use a Java class instead of using an XML to define your beans. An example of the Java based configuration annotations are configuration and bean. So since we are using annotations here as well, so some people get confused whether annotation based configuration and Java based configuration is same or not. So Java based configuration is all about replacing your XML file, whereas annotation based configuration is all about telling Spring what to manage. So In this session we will be discussing both the concepts, how do we uh, take them into consideration, and how do we write the code using the Java based and the annotation based configuration. Okay, so bean a summary about this would be: bean creation in annotation based configuration is auto created by using the annotations like component, whereas bean creation in Java based configuration would be done by using the @bean annotation. Okay, and obviously when we create the bean by using an @bean, we have more control over it, and in terms of using components and service and repositories, we will not have much control on that. Okay, and one is obviously this is checked at the compile time, this will be checked at the runtime. So this is type safe, this is type unsafe. So let us now see some examples about this and understand how are we going to uh, apply these two things together and make the work done. So what I'm gonna do now is that I will be using an annotation based configuration. So first of all, let's go ahead and try and replace our XML file, and after that we can completely see how we can differentiate between these two. So in the previous session we have configured all our beans into an XML. Now what I want, the problem here is that I have to create a separate XML file and I have to understand that XML file. So when it comes to book.java, so we have seen the scopes and everything in our previous session. So whenever I was creating a bean at that time, I created a spring.xml, and we did this all this get bean and everything, right? So what I want is, I don't want this to be implemented. I completely want to remove this XML based configuration from here. So what I will do now is that I will just completely delete that XML based configuration to ensure that it's not part of our application. So I'm just gonna delete this. Let's delete that part, and also the spring.out, which I accidentally uh, I executed while executing the application. So now you notice that I have removed this spring.xml, which is not a part of my program. Now what I will do is I will try and create the beans uh, by using the Java based configuration. So what I will do now is that in the service, the first thing that we will be changing inside the service class is gonna be what is gonna be the type of the factory that we are using. So in the previous session, if you remember, we have used the class path XML application context. So here we will be using the annotation config application context, and then we have to specify, we have to tell which class contains the configuration. So which of the class contains the configuration. Now if you are replacing your XML with a Java class, so you have to define that Java class first. So let us define the Java class here. So let's create a package for this, and let's call it as the config package and put up the configuration inside that. And obviously my base package remains the same, which is org.springcode.demo. So I'll create a config package here so that I understand that it is all present inside the config, and I'll call it as my app config class. Okay, so in this particular class I'm gonna create the beans and everything. So since I'm creating the beans and everything inside this class, so I have to like tell the spring to consider this particular class as a configuration class. So I, the first annotation that I'll put on top of this is gonna be configuration, so that my spring understand that this is the configuration where I'm creating the beans. So let us now create a bean and understand how do we deal with it. So I'll be creating a bean, and there are certain set of rules that are associated with this beans. Whenever we are creating a bean, at that time the bean has to be put on top of a method. And if suppose in this case I had a book.java and also I have a library.java, so I want to create a bean of type book. Here if you remember, in the XML I created a book type of bean using XML configuration. So here I'm gonna create the same type of bean, which is the book bean, but by using the bean annotation. So how do we do it? Simply you create a public method for this, and the return type of a method should be same as the type of the bean that you want to create. So I want to create a book type of bean, so I'll just be creating it as a public book, and let's call it as get book or create book or something. Okay, so your function name can be anything. Now since I have created a method that returns a book, I have to create a book object there. Now return new book. Now you might say this is what we used to do in Java. Why we have came back to this particular concept? If you remember, when dealing with the Spring, I told you that we let the Spring container create the objects for us and also manage the life cycle of that object and everything. So here, although we are using this new keyword, but Spring decides when to create this object and the life cycle of this object. Everything is managed under the Spring container. So here let's give the ISBN for the book, which can be either anything, maybe 55, 10, 20, 30, anything. And then the title of the book. So let us give the title, maybe my first World Cup. Okay, so let's save it, and then let's now see how are we going to use that object and whether we will be able to get this being created or not. So let's go to the service now, and inside the service I have already told the Spring container that I'm going to make use of the annotation config application context, and also I have to tell where is my configuration. So the configuration is there in the my app config class, so we have to specify that so that the Spring understands this is the class where the configuration is present. Like in the previous case, we told the Spring that this is the XML file where we have the bean configuration. Now the bean configuration is already being given by using the @bean annotation. Let's now create a book and get the book from the factory. So factory dot get bean again. So bean, now since there is only one book type of bean, so obviously I can simply go for the book dot class here. All right, so now let us just test whether the book is available or not. So let's save it, and let's run this service, save everything. So once we run this service, you can notice that I have the ISBN created as 10 and the name of the book is My First World Cup, which is the same thing that I have defined here. So this is how you provide the configurations when it comes to the uh, Java based and annotation based configuration. So if you see that here I have replaced the XML file uh, with a completely Java class. So a Java class is being replaced with the XML file is being replaced with the Java file, and then the configuration annotation and the bean annotation is being used. So this is how you perform a Java based configuration here. So let me just put this into the repository, and we will further see the other demonstration about the annotations that we are using. So let me just put this into the repository that we have. All right, so it was the Spring, right? So let's call it as Java full stack Spring, and this is our session 77. So obviously we will be creating a day 77 repository. This is gonna be demo 1, which is Java based config. So in Java based configuration, the end goal is to replace the XML file with the Java class. So I'm gonna give you every single thing here. This is my book class, and which is my bean basically, so a book class. And then we have the book service, and inside the service we have changed the factory. Then we have the configuration file, right? So which is a main file for us. So I'll be giving you the configuration, which is my app configuration. So in this case I have not yet used the library. I have just created the book bean. So I think that's enough service config, and the book class would be enough for this particular demonstration. So let's put this into the repository. Now, in the previous session we have used the bean and everything. Now what I want to do is that I just want to get the bean based out of a name of the bean. If you remember in the previous XML, we can even get the bean by using the name of the bean. So book service, now book dot class is something that I have used here. So get bean method can also take the name of the bean, right? And in that case we have to typecast the bean to this book because it returns an object. So now while dealing with the bean, that means while defining the bean, I did not give any name to this bean. So if you don't give any name to this bean, the default name of the bean is the name of the method that you have provided. That's why the name of the method becomes very important here. So if I do a get book, save it and then run it, so I'll get the same bean created for me. If I give something else, I'll not be able to get that. Similarly, what we can also do is that if suppose we provide in a name of the bean, so at that time, how are we going to take it and how are we going to define the bean? So both the things I will put into the repository. If you have not given any name at that time, you take this. So I'll just pass in the book service to you, demo to get bean by name. Okay, so demo to get bean by the name of the bean. Okay, so this is how we get the bean by name, just by specifying the uh, name of the method. So let me give you the configuration as well. So two things: in case if we wish to provide in any name to the bean, that is also possible. Now how are we going to provide the name to the bean? It is quite easy. While defining the bean, you can specify the name of the bean as well. So here you can simply say name is equal to any name of your bean. Let's call it as my book or something. So when I provide this as my book, so this is the name that I have to use here in my service, and this is how we get the bean. So my book, let's save it and run it. So here also we should get the same bean. So let's save everything and you can see that I'm getting the same bean here. So that way we get the beans. So let me also share this with you. So this is about naming a bean. So demo 3, naming a bean. So if we want to name a bean at that time, we can simply put up a name inside the uh, bean configuration which we have specified here. All right, so that looks good now. We have specified the name of the bean and we are retrieving the name of the bean and everything. Now let's try and perform the very important concept about the beans that we created. Even in the previous sessions we have created the beans. So here in this session we will be talking about auto wiring the bean. That means injecting the bean that we have discussed in our previous sessions. So let me just now go to the library class, and here in the library, if you notice, I had a uh, private book. So this is the bean that I want to auto wire, and let's see how do we auto wire the beans. Let's first go to the configuration and create both the beans. That means let's create the library bean as well as we will create the book bean. So here I need to now create a library bean. So while creating a library bean, I will give the name of the bean as library. So it is optional. If we don't give the name to the bean, automatically the name of the method becomes the bean name. So I'll call it as get library, and here obviously the return type of this method has to be the library. That is because we are creating a library bean here. So while creating a library bean, now we will be providing the details about the library. So while creating this library, you notice what I'm actually doing here. uh, I will not write this, so I can configure everything here, but I want to perform an auto wiring. That is why I'm not giving it here. So I will do a library. That means I'll create a instance of library is equal to new library. So here I don't have the book initialized yet, right? So I'll do a library dot set the name of the library. So let's set the name of the library. Let's call it as the central library or something. Now the center library is created and I'm returning the same library here. So when I return this library and get the library, obviously the book in the library is gonna be null, right? So let's go ahead and see that instead of getting a book from the factory, let's try and get the library from the factory. So factory dot get bean of library type, because there is only one library being created. So I'll say library dot class, and we should be able to get the library bean here. Okay, so let's go for the library, and the library bean will be created. So when I print this library, obviously what I have done inside the configuration is that I do have a library name set, but the book is not yet set to the library. So when I save and run this, so I will get the library name, but the book object I will not get. That means the book bean is created inside the Spring container, but the book bean is not called because the book bean is null, because the configuration does not specify the book bean. I can say library dot set book and all that here, but I don't want to set that. I want the auto wiring to happen. So let us now understand how do we perform an auto wiring here. So in the library, you go to the book and simply say auto wire this. So the moment you write the auto wire, Spring goes to the container, sees where is the book bean, and injects that bean automatically for you. So let's now run this and see the book service. So now you can see that it is giving us a library name. Also, it is giving us the book details. So this is how you perform auto wiring when it comes to the Java based configuration. Fine. So I will put up all these example once again into the repository. So let me first put a book bean, and let's call it as auto wiring demo 4 auto wire. So this is our book bean, and then we have the library bean. That means library class. Let's have this, and then let's also have the configuration, which is the main file, and then the service. All right, so we are done with this now. Okay, while performing auto wiring, there is a possibility that there can be more than one bean. Now the bean is auto wired by type, right? So the bean is auto wired by type. We have seen the type of auto wiring. So in the configuration, what if I have more than one bean of type book? So let's create more than one bean of type book. So get book one, and this book is gonna be 100, and this is gonna be my last World Cup or something. Okay, so let's save it. So I have two book beans created, and there is one library bean, and I'm trying to auto wire it. So if you remember, whenever we try to auto wire anything by type, if there are more than one qualifying bean, at that time we were getting an exception. So let us see what we will get now. So when I try and run this once again, it is trying to auto wire the things, and when it is auto wiring, you can see that there are it requires one matching bean, but there are two book beans that are available. So first of all, it tries to perform an auto wire by type, and that is failing, right? So what needs to be done now? So it cannot perform an auto wire by type. Now is it searching for the auto wire by name as well or not? So I will now go to the configuration. So this was a problem before. Now what I'm going to do is I will simply tell that this particular, the second bean, the name of this bean is just a book. And once again, I go to the service and run this and see what happens now. So when I try to do that, you notice that a bean is already injected. So my container is capable, and it is intelligent enough to understand what bean has to be injected. So what it has done now is that since we have more than one qualifying bean, it has performed the auto wire by name. So which bean is injected? This bean is injected auto wire by name, because the name of this bean is similar to the name of this property book. That is why it has performed auto wire by name. So Spring is intelligent enough to decide whether it has to perform an auto wire by type, or it has to perform an auto wire by name. So let me share this once again with you. So in this, this is the service which is quite same as what we have done before. So in this case, uh, demofy auto wire by name. So auto wire by name is happening. So this is my book class. Sorry, this is the service class. So in the service, we are just calling the library, and in the configuration, we have the more than one book is being defined. So if you see the configuration, more than one book is defined, and in library we are trying to auto wire the book. So the book class remains the same. Let's go to the library. You can notice it here that the property name is book. That is why Spring intelligently is injecting that here. Fine. So my book class remains the same here. So I'll not be providing you the book. So I have provided you service, library, and the configuration. So that's fine. Now we have injected this. In case, suppose if we don't have this being returned, that means if suppose I have something like this, I don't have a matching bean that qualifies the name, that is my book one. So what can be done here? Is it possible to now inject the bean properly? So yes, there are annotations provided by Java which allows you to inject the beans. Now how do we do that? Let's go to the library, and in the library, when I'm auto wiring this particular property, what I can also do is that I can tell the auto wire qualifier. So I can provide in a qualifier and tell which bean has to be injected, what is the name of the bean. So any name can be defined. Like for example, if I want to auto wire this my book, so I can specify that this book has to be injected. So let's save it, and now let's run the service and see the first bean is injected. So you can see that the first bean, which is my first World Cup, is being injected here. So we can also make use, this tells us that we can also make use of the qualifiers to inject any bean of our choice. So whatever bean we want to inject, we can inject that particular bean. Okay, so let me share that as well with you. So inside this library, now what I have done is I am making use of the qualifier at the rate qualifier. So I hope up to this in this session we have understood what is the purpose of using a qualifier, a bean, and the auto wire, and how do we create the beans, and how do we perform a Java based configuration where we replace the XML completely from our Spring application. So this is my service, not the config. All right, so this is the configuration where I don't have the names, but in the bean, that is the library bean, I have specified the qualifier that tells the Spring container to inject which bean. Fine. So in the next session, we will be continuing with this configuration types, that is the Java based and the annotation based configuration. So in terms of Java based configuration, we have already replaced the XML file with a Java class, and then in the annotation based configuration where we are going to tell Spring what to manage, we will discuss by making use of the components and component scan annotation. Also, we will talk about the scope of the bean that we have discussed in our previous session, and also we will talk about the lifecycle methods, like maybe an init method. That means uh, whenever a bean is being initialized, what needs to be done, or maybe when a bean is being destroyed, what needs to be done. So those are the lifecycle methods. We will discuss those things into our next session. Hopefully you're enjoying in the series. If you're enjoying in the series, subscribe to my channel and encourage me to create more such content for you. Thank you. See you in the next session.